Okay, I'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Metz, will you please call the roll?
Gary Gross.
Here.
Jim Hall.
Here.
Todd Moore. Christopher Ambergy. Christopher Ambergy does have an excused absence. Jerry Heidenreich.
Present.
David Cash.
Here.
Stefan Wanamaker.
Here.
Okay, would you please
have
join
quorum.
us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Dave?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess everybody had a chance to look at the minutes last time. Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes from last meeting?
Nope.
I would move that they be accepted as presented.
Second.
Motion is moved in second. Mr. Metz?
Stefan Wanamaker.
Yes.
David Cash.
Yes.
Jerry Heidenreich.
Yes.
Jim Hall.
Yes.
Gary Gross.
Yes.
And we can swear in Mr. Metz, please, and we'll start with the first case.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. So tonight before us, we have a request by applicant Jennifer Riddle on behalf of property owner Bill Brittenstein for approval of an area and dimensional variance for the property located at 5349 Donatello Drive. The property is zoned R2 Low Density Residential District. The variance requested is allow for an attached deck to project more than 10 feet into the required rear yard setback, which is prohibited by the standards set forth in the Middletown Development Code. So as previously mentioned, the property is zoned R2. The purpose of the R2 low density residential development is to provide for low density single family residential uses in a more urban setting than an R1 district, and which are completely served by public infrastructure adequate for the applicable density of the development. Please note that this farmland behind the property is not actually within the city of Middletown. This pink line is where our border ends, and this is the applicant's property. So the Middletown Development Code, Chapter 120601, Accessory Uses and Structures, Subsection B, General Provisions, and Subsection 7, an accessory structure that is attached to the principal building shall be considered an integral part of the principal building and shall comply with the site development standards and all other development standards of the applicable zoning district. Meaning that if there is a deck that is attached to the home, it must meet the rear yard setback for that home. Per the Middletown Development Code, Chapter 120410, Site Development Standards D, Projections and Required Yards. Porches, patios, and arbors and trellises may project a distance not exceeding 10 feet into a front or a rear yard as long as they are not enclosed by walls. This deck is not enclosed by walls, but it would still project more than the 10 feet that is permitted. As you can see here on the applicant's site plan that was submitted, this initial drawing here is just a deck that's covering the patio, but this patio already exists. The new addition of the deck would be this large square here, and they would include the deck on top of the patio, and it would be about 22 feet from the rear property line for a total deck space of 502 square feet. So the site development standards for an R2 zoning district, the rear yard setback, which would be required, is 50 feet. Except that we see also when the home was approved, the patio is also included in the rear yard setback. So rear yard setback, which is kind of blurry on this image, but on the it was included in your staff packet, is 46.58 feet. So the rear yard setback for this home is 46.58. They can go into an additional 10 feet into that, meaning the rear yard setback could go to 36.58 feet, and they're requesting that the deck goes up to 22 feet from the rear property line. As you notice on this image as well, there's a 30-foot private drainage easement that runs up from the farm field up to their property about 30 feet. This isn't an underground drainage easement. This is just an open-air culvert. I ran this through our Public Works Natural Resources Coordinator, and she said as long as the deck doesn't have walls built up on either side, so water could flow freely, it should not be an issue. And this is what you see in this image, is the new deck that covers the patio, and then the new deck that would be added on. Additionally, you see that the deck is open air at the bottom, and then a gravel base. This image was also provided by the applicant. Per the Middletown Development Code, the requirement for legal notice for variance requests meeting notice letters for the proposed variance were sent to all property owners contiguous directly across the street or public right-of-way, and all comments were forwarded to the Board of Zoning Appeals. We did receive one letter in support that I did forward to you. And then I will read the review criteria for the area and dimensional variance. Please tell me if you have any questions. The following factors shall be considered and weighed by the BZA to determine practical difficulty. Whether special conditions or circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land or structure involved and which are not applicable generally to other lands or structures in the same zoning district. Examples of such special conditions or circumstances are exceptional irregularity, narrowness, shallowness, or steepness of the lot, or adjacency to non-conforming or inharmonious uses, structures, or conditions. Whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return, and whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Whether the special conditions and circumstances are a direct result from the actions of the applicant, his or her agents, or prior property owners. Whether the variance is substantial and is the minimum necessary to make possible the reasonable use of the land or structures. Whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered, or whether adjoining properties would suffer substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of governmental services such as water, sewer, electric refuse pickup, or other vital services. Whether special conditions or circumstances exist as a result of actions of the owner. Whether the property owner's predicament can feasibly be obviated through some method other than a variance. Whether the spirit and intent behind the code requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting a variance. Whether the granting of the variance requested will confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this regulation to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. No single factor listed above may control, and not all factors may be applicable in each case. Each case shall be determined on its own facts. Any person or entity claiming to be injured or aggrieved by any final action of the Board of Zoning Appeals has the right to appeal the decision to the Court of Common Pleas as provided in the Ohio Revised Code, Chapters 2505 and 2506. The applicant is present. If you, please note whenever you do make a decision to reference the review criteria. The applicant is present. That ends my staff report. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions?
So, do I understand that when the residence was built, that the patio that's already there already exceeded was within the 50-foot setback line? So it was already, so when Planning Commission or when the plat was approved, that exception, I guess is what I want to call it, was approved as part of the process.
As part of the process, yes. So a lot of these homes in the Renaissance either received some type of administrative waiver or some type of variance. Some of them were side yard setbacks, some of them were this.
And so this proposed deck would extend all the way to the boundary of the 30-foot private drainage easement?
It'd extend beyond that, yes.
Beyond it? Okay.
Make sure I heard you right. It will go into the drainage easement?
Yes, the drainage easement is an open air culvert, so basically just kind of like a just sloped yard, heavily sloped, yeah.
And to clarify, it's 22 feet from the rear property line.
Yeah, so 22 feet from this bold line right here, about 22 feet in. So it'd only be exceeding into about 8 feet. I did talk to our natural resources coordinator, and she said as long as the deck is not, there's not a wall that would stop the water from flowing through, should not be an issue.
I got a question. Who owns that property behind it? It's not part of the city. Is it part of a township, or do we know?
I think it's part of like Hendricks Farm. Yeah, it's a farmland, but I believe it's part of Hendricks Farm or Hendricks Road Farm.
On that sketch that you show there, there seems to be like is that like shrubbery or something, or weeds, or in that drainage path there?
Right here. Yeah.
It's a tree line, but not on, okay, well, I'll ask the property owner, okay. Any other questions?
So if that is owned by Hendrickson Farm, are they actually going to be building on another person's property?
No. So their deck, back, forward. So their deck right here is only 39 feet from the corner of this house, or that number is, I think it's 25. So if we go forward, they're only going 39 feet off of this corner. So the deck would end about here, well, right about there,
Yeah. It's
and then
8
come
feet
down.
into the drive.
About 8 feet into here. So
Right.
that's about where the deck would end.
Any questions, any additional questions? If not, I'll open up the hearing and see if there's anybody here that would like to speak in favor of the variance. Would you please come forward and identify yourself after you're sworn in?
Right,
Right to the podium, please.
right there at the podium. If you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And identify yourself, please.
My name is Heidi Breitenstein. My husband and I are the owners of the property. It's an original build. We built the house. Or Fisher built it, but I'm saying we asked them to build it. And what should I tell you? Why I want this? You want
Yes.
to know why I want this?
Yes.
This is our final home. We're seniors, we're retired. We had a large deck at our previous home. When Fisher gave us the option of a patio or a deck, we were going to go with a deck. But we bought the very first piece of property at a premium because it was flat, and we wanted our house to be flat. And when the people on either side of us built huge houses, they wanted the sight line for the street to look better than a little house and then these great big houses. So we got steps going in the house, steps going out of the house, and they told us we were going to have that our option was a deck or a patio, and the patio was going to be underneath the roof. But they've got these skinny little concrete steps, and it's right up against a wall of the house. So that the house.
Ma'am, could you please speak into the microphone?
Pardon me?
You have to speak into the microphone,
Okay.
ma'am.
So the very first time that we went from our house, we have a door there, to the patio, we tripped. And our friends trip. And it's just not conducive to us as seniors. We need to have something that goes straight out from that door opening. So that's why we wanted, when they build the deck, they're going to put a different step system for us. It's a little safer. My husband is here. He just had a knee replacement a couple weeks ago, and he's going to have another knee replacement. So we're trying to kind of lessen our risk of falling. The reason the deck is going straight out instead of behind the house is because Fisher doesn't put windows on the side of your home. They only put them in the front and the back. And so if we put the deck behind the house, it would obstruct that one window that we have, that we look out. So that is the reason we want to put the deck going out, straight out. Any other questions?
You're speaking to the elevation, the heights of these things, and that's how you block the window, because the deck would be elevated a little?
We have very large windows because there's no other light. The windows are all in the back or in the front of the house. So if you put a deck back there, you would see legs walking by the window. It's kind of weird. So because of that elevation, it would be unusual. Because when we walk out our morning room, which is where the patio is, it's way down. So like the house goes out here, and then the patio's all the way on the ground.
All right. Any questions, guys? I'm having trouble visualizing this thing.
Well, if you look at the picture up there, do you see the windows right there?
Mm-hmm.
Those are morning room windows. The deck is going to be a little bit higher, and that's the big window behind us. So if you put a deck there, you're going to have people walking in front of your window. We wanted it to be straight out so that it didn't block that view, that window view.
So on that picture, it comes out that way?
It's going to follow the existing patio. It's just going to go straight out. That's it.
It'll go this direction, from this window straight here.
Yeah.
She's saying that she couldn't build it out and then along the house because you would have people walking by the window.
Okay, can I have the top view once, Jim?
This one or,
I have more pictures of the
That
actual
one, yeah.
space.
Oh, there's no window shown on that one.
Yeah.
So that's where I was missing it, I guess. I see you're not as far as the window. The window's on further down that line.
We don't have any other doors on the back of the house either. That's the only door to exit onto a patio or a deck. We just have windows.
Now, as far as that drainage ditch back there, how much slope is there? Is there any slope to it?
It's kind of a weird situation. It's kind of like we had sod put down, and it's kind of like your yard is kind of like this, and then there's just a little cup like this. I can walk across it. The only thing is that everybody, all the water drains down back there. We've never had anything over what, the worst we've ever had it was if you step in it, it goes whoosh. It's not a big, we're at the top. There's a hole, So no, we've never had, it's just kind of a little dip in the grass. We cut it just like we cut all the rest of the grass.
Mr. Metz, would you mind going back one? Thank you. So with the 10-foot, and ma'am, not to interrupt you, I just want to clarify if,
Okay.
with the 10-foot that would be allowed, that would put it at still 40 feet from the back property line, which is still within the 50-foot setback, is that correct?
so,
If the very
Permitted to
minimum
be
amount they would be allowed to do.
I'm sorry, say that
The
again.
very minimum amount.
So currently it's at 46.58. If they went into the additional 10, they would have to be 36.58 from the rear property line.
Thank you.
So they're asking approximately 14 feet.
Okay.
Can I interject one more thing?
Please.
Because we're older, we wanted some of that space to be protected from the sun. And so we are purchasing a 12 by 14 pagoda that opens up. It has screening in it for bugs, and it has, like a drapery, and it also has a roof system. And there's already an existing roof over the patio. So the HOA would like there to be some space between the roof that exists on the patio, because it has lights and everything in it, to where this pagoda is going to be. And if we lose that square footage, we're going to have a problem there with things butting up against each other. Because the HOA is most concerned about the aesthetic of it. We've already been approved. The plans, the dimensions, the length, the pagoda, all of that has gone through them.
That was actually going to be one of my questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, and they've cleared everything without question. And actually, just as a humorous footnote, you must have sent out papers stating that we were going to be putting a deck on our house. But what was cute was my neighbors brought them to me and said, Heidi, I think this is your mail. And I said, no. I said, I'm trying to put a deck. Do you have any objections? And they said, no. No, we don't. So we're good with them as well. We know our neighbors.
Any other questions?
So ma'am, you have provided the HOA with detailed plans of this intended pagoda?
Everything, yes.
And it,
Pictures,
and
drawings.
the HOA has approved it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they have.
Any other questions for her? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here wanting in favor of the variance and would like to come up and speak? If you got senior, okay. Please swear her in, Dave.
Ma'am, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And identify yourself, please.
My name's Jennifer Riddle. I'm the owner of Building Character. I just wanted to come up here and say that the material she used is a composite material, so it's going to be no maintenance on them. The railing is an aluminum rail, so no maintenance. And I think, for their age, the going with the zero maintenance for them and having that room is what they desire most. So, but as for, does anybody have questions for me on the deck?
No,
Nothing?
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I got a question for Mr. Metz. Any deck that they would build on the back of the house would require variance?
No. So if they wanted to build a deck, as long as they stayed 36.58 feet away from the rear property line, they could still build a deck. So they could still build a deck here, or then like have it wrap around, although they did mention the issue with the window. They could have another deck here, except I don't believe they have a door. But mind you, if those issues did not exist, they could build anywhere here in line with the building, as long as it does not trespass the side yard setback or the rear yard setback.
That's what I was getting at, the rear yard setback.
Mm-hmm. So they could build a deck along their rear of the home, as long as it did not encroach upon the 36.58 feet.
Okay, well, let me continue. I don't see anybody here that would come up and oppose the variance. So we'll just move past that. Let's just
The public hearing is now closed, right?
close the public hearing and we'll open it up for us. I certainly can see what they want to do.
Yes.
I don't know exactly as far as what we consider on this. The one thing that's unusual in my mind is the backyard being a farm area there. It's kind of different. The drainage line apparently is not an issue as long as the deck is elevated.
Yes. And this is
Just the size of it is what we question, I would think.
if I remember right, this is a third or fourth variance we've heard out in that area in the Renaissance.
It is.
So I think that speaks for itself.
As Mr. Cash pointed out, an exclusion or whatever you'd like to call it, has been granted at the building of the property regarding the rear setback. So I think that's something to be considered as well, and again, it's been brought up several times out there in the past, and so I think it might be something with that plat, that something to consider. It seems to me that I would say that the shallowness of the lots have kind of caused a bit of an issue, which is, I would say, criteria 1.
Yes.
So just not to, if anyone else has an idea, I would be one to move, to approve the variance as submitted. And I would cite criteria 1 for that the shallowness of the lot has caused a bit of an issue for them to build an appropriate deck.
Excuse me. I'll second that motion with that review criteria as the basis.
Any discussions on the motion that's been approved or issued and seconded? Any discussion? If not, we'll have a vote. Would you call the roll?
Gary Gross,
Yes?
Jim Hall,
Yes.
Trey Heidenreich,
Yes.
David Cash,
Yes.
Stefan Wanamaker.
Yes.
Motion's passed. Let's see. We don't have any additional cases to review, any new or old business to discuss. Welcome to our meeting.
Amy, would you like to introduce yourself? I know you already talked to them, but
I had a chance to talk to you before the meeting, but just introduce myself on the record. My name's Amy Blankenship. I'm an attorney with Bricker Graydon. I work with Ben Yoder, the Middletown Law Director, and I'll be attending your meetings from now on. We talked about scheduling a training. I think it's been maybe a year or two since we've had one. So we'll do a BZA training. I know that'll be exciting, but something to look forward to. And yeah, and you'll just see me here monthly. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you for attending. Can we have a motion to move to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting's adjourned.
All right.
Congratulations, guys. Good luck with your deck, and
Thanks, Jack. Thanks.
I'll send you an outcome letter
Okay.
and then review that application.
Short and sweet. Well.
Yeah, absolutely.